Greetings from sunny Sydney. Hello, I'm Doug McCartney, and I have something to tell you that I consider to be the most important thing you're ever likely to hear. That's a very arrogant thing for me to say, but it concerns your life, the life of your children and your grandchildren. Surely that makes it very important. Years ago, mid-1980s, something like that, I was influenced by two women. Dr. Madalyn Murray O'Hair, founder of American Atheists. Regardless of whether you're an atheist or a Christian or whatever, carry on listening because this definitely concerns you. And Dr. Helen Caldicott, an Australian woman who wrote a book called Nuclear Madness. Both women were convinced that we were getting very close to nuclear war. You have no idea how close. Back in 1999, 20 years ago, Dr. Helen Caldicott gave an interview to the Sydney Morning Herald, and she predicted that there would be nuclear war within 20 years. Now, let me think now. 20 years from 1999? 2019. Well, bless my soul. We're here. Hopefully she got it wrong. But I don't think she got it very wrong. Back in the 1950s, I was a young teenager at the time of the Suez Crisis. And I clearly remember lying in bed at night, I think I was about 14 years old, listening to the planes flying overhead at night. And this was after Khrushchev threatened to bomb London in retaliation for what the Brits were doing in Egypt. And I remember lying in bed thinking, oh, is that the one? Is that the plane carrying the atom bomb? I felt the fear. This sets me apart from most of you who will be much younger than me. And then again, back in, when was this, 1962, I was aboard a cargo ship, the MV Wongaroa, and we had a cargo of tractor tires on board for Havana in Cuba. And we got turned back because there was something going on. We didn't know what it was at the time, and we had to discharge the cargo at Veracruz in Mexico. The whole world was that close to nuclear war back in 1962. That's the one time everybody remembers. No problem for remembering that. Everybody remembers the Cuban Missile Crisis. But what you don't remember, because you have no knowledge of it, is the number of times we've come just as close to nuclear war as we did back in 1962. And that is what this video is all about. So if you care even just the tiniest, weeniest little bit for yourself, your children and your grandchildren, bear with me. Just put your little iPhone twiddle box down for a few minutes. Twiddle, 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 twiddle. Put it down for a minute and watch this video because it's very important. Chances are you've been told, and you believe, no one would be stupid enough to launch a nuclear war. Wrong. You couldn't be more wrong. Anyway, the chances are when it happens, it will be the result of a computer glitch, a virus of some kind, an error. But if not, you would be so mistaken to believe that no one would be stupid enough to launch a nuclear war. Since the Cuban Missile Crisis, we have come close to global nuclear obliteration on at least a dozen occasions. Let me ask you, who is Colonel Stanislav Petrov? Oh, you don't know who he is? Why am I not surprised? Let me just check a few facts here and I'll read you something. 26th of September 1983, Colonel Stanislav Petrov took command of an early warning bunker just south of Moscow. I won't read you the whole thing. This is going into a book that I'm in the process of writing. He was in charge of their retaliatory missile force, and on that night the sirens started wailing, the primitive computer screen started flashing, strike, strike, strike. His job, everything he had been trained for, was to launch a retaliatory attack, because the computers were telling him that America had launched a missile attack on Moscow. He thought about it and decided, this isn't right, there's a mistake here somewhere. He disobeyed orders and decided not to set in motion a retaliatory strike against the USA. 5 times during that night the computers went crazy, and 5 times he disobeyed orders. What a remarkable man. You owe your life to Colonel Petrov, Stanislav Petrov. But chances are you've never heard of him. I bet you could name the captain of your rugby team or cricket team, but not the man who saved your life and the life of your children. No, never heard of him. What about Able Archer? What do you know about Able Archer? Able Archer, around about the same time, actually, shortly after, the Soviets learned that NATO was planning a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union. And it was within minutes of retaliating when someone figured their calculations were incorrect. They'd made a mistake, so they withdrew. What do you know about Able Archer? Have you ever heard of it? Chances are, I bet you've heard of The Simpsons on Netflix or whatever it's on, but you've never heard of Able Archer. The whole point of this video, the reason I'm trying to get through to you, is to bring you up to date and show you how badly, how incorrectly you've been conditioned to believe garbage, absolute rubbish, nonsense. The whole Western world has been dumbed down. The most important thing for me to do today is to dispel this idea that no one would be stupid enough to launch a nuclear war. Let me show you something. I'm sure you've heard of this magazine, Time magazine, and this is July the 1st, 2002. And it features an article all about born-again, rah-rah-rah evangelical Christians, most of whom are looking forward to Armageddon, the day when they'll be raptured into the sky to meet Jesus mid-sky, just as he happens to be plummeting down to challenge the beast 666, and Jesus will toss the beast, Satan, into the lake of eternal fire, and then should anyone be left on planet Earth, sinners like me and possibly you, Jesus will put pay to us as well. But the Christians, the born-again Christians, not your average Christians, your born-again, rah, evangelical Christians, they'll be hovering up here in the sky, looking down, laughing their heads off as we get burned to a cinder. It's all here. Look, look, it's here. These are the end time books. They've sold millions and millions and millions of copies. Like this is going back to 2002, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 editions, and they all sell millions. The first edition sold over 7 million copies. And what this article shows is that 42%, the adult population of the United States of America, is looking forward to this rapture and the end of the evil, wicked times, the destruction of people like you, possibly. I mean, you might be righteous, for all I know. Chances are you're not. Destruction of people like you and me. And after this period, everybody gets burned to death, eaten by cockroaches and rats, and we die of radiation poisoning if we haven't. The lucky ones get burned to death instantly, reduced to charcoal or ash. This is what they're looking forward to. Almost 100 million American citizens. So when you believe this crap, that no one would be stupid enough to launch a nuclear war, here they are. They're your citizens, because we've got plenty of them here in Australia too. Oh, Armageddon, yay! This is why I'm trying to waken you. This end times garbage is a big thing. Men, mostly men, are making millions and millions of dollars writing this sort of crap, and it influences people. People believe anything. Joy of Armageddon, Armageddon theology, when Jesus drops down to earth with a sword protruding from his mouth, incidentally. He's riding a white stallion, sword, blood-soaked garments. He drops down to earth, puts an end to all the wickedness on planet Earth. Are you looking forward to it? I hope not, because it means the end of you.
I believe that there will be a military preemptive strike over Iran, and that's the only thing that will stop them. I believe that this military action will cause Russia to bring together a coalition of Islamic nations to attack Israel at some point in the future.
Hagee is also a best-selling author whose latest book has sold more than 600,000 copies.
We are on a countdown to crisis, a nuclear showdown initiated by Iran, a battle for Jerusalem, and this war will affect every person on planet Earth. This is the essence of Pastor Hagee's new book, Jerusalem Countdown. In this book, Pastor Hagee provides shocking information of the impending war, the Pentagon's contingency plan for the use of nuclear weapons against at least 7 countries, the United States' use of bunker-busting mini-nukes, and how an attack on Jerusalem will affect America.
You feel that the Bible says no matter what, even if we got to a nuclear confrontation, we must stand by Israel.
And I believe God will take care of us one way or the other. It may be, we may even be martyred for his sake. But I believe that he has a way of taking care of his own.
Listen very closely. How many of you are listening very closely? Those of you watching television, listen to what I'm saying. The point is, the battle between Russia and her Arab allies against Israel is beginning to take shape right in front of our eyes. And the rapture of the church happens before this war ever starts. And this war could start at any month now.
And in the end, for many here, there is only the word.
See, the biggest mistake you can make is to think these people are just stupid fools and you don't need to worry about them. I don't know much about Donald Trump except for he shoots his mouth off a few times too often. But what about Mike Pence, Deputy President? Vice President, I believe he's called. What would happen if he became President? You know, Donald Trump was impeached or something like that. And I believe he's a staunch fundamentalist Christian. That should bother you. We have a Prime Minister here in Australia, Scott Morrison. He's one of these Pentecostal Christians, you know, the ones that lay on the floor going, they call it talking in tongues. We are governed by morons like that. Don't ignore them. You've got to start taking these people seriously. They really do believe that Armageddon, global nuclear obliteration, is going to be a wonderful thing. Oh, so joyful. They're so looking forward to it. You need to take these people seriously. What do they do for a living? Well, chances are they're programming Pentagon computers. They could be crewing and commanding nuclear submarines or flying nuclear-armed bombers. They could be sitting in pairs, fresh-faced little Baptist boys sitting in pairs down missile silos, awaiting orders from God to launch their anointed missiles. Oh, you say, they can't do that without the codes. The nuclear codes have to be provided by the President. But what you don't know is that during the Yom Kippur War, what's that, you ask? Well, it's when Israel and Egypt were at war, and the chiefs of staff of the USA were convinced that the USSR was about to launch a nuclear attack. So while President Nixon slept, because they didn't want to disturb him, the chief of staff put all of America's nuclear missiles on red alert. This is what these guys are waiting for. The guys down the missile silos are waiting for the chiefs of staff or the president, they don't care, to pass the instructions of the codes of the nuclear missiles over to them, because they're going to do whatever God instructs them to do. Yes, they are. They're good boys, good Christian Baptist boys, and they will do whatever God commands. And God wants them to launch their nuclear missiles. Let me ask you a question. How many times do you think you can run red lights? Imagine this. You've had a great night out, you've had a few drinks, you jump in your car, 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and you decide to put your foot down and drive home at 80, 90 miles an hour. And you can't be bothered to stop at red lights. You just put your foot down a little bit further and zoom on through. How many times do you think you would get away with that? If you're honest about it, your answer should be, not many. Now look, what else can I tell you about this? Is there any hope? Not a lot. If you continue to believe that no one will be stupid enough to launch a nuclear war, no hope. If you continue to look the other way and pretend, oh, so long as you've got lots of data on your little twiddle box, everything's okay. Provided Netflix or whatever is showing your favourite movies, no way. There's no hope at all. But there is a little glimmer of hope, and I'll tell you what it is. Just recently, just a few months ago actually, thousands of school kids, teenagers mostly, not rioted, no they didn't riot, they were well behaved, but they marched in the streets demanding that the government took notice of global warming. That's a good sign. I was really surprised. I didn't think young people cared about anything except their little twiddle boxes. But they do care about global warming. That to me is a good sign, because if they care about global warming, perhaps we could make them care about global scorching. Instant global obliteration. Maybe we can encourage them to take notice of that and care about it. Because let's face it, once 16,000 nuclear warheads have exploded, how long will it take for the polar ice caps to melt? At the moment it looks like they're going to melt, in a space of a few decades. But once 16,000 nuclear warheads explode, which they're likely to explode any day soon, any month soon, certainly any year soon, those, does it matter? I mean, once everybody's dead or dying or being eaten alive by rats and cockroaches, what does it matter? But those polar ice caps are going to melt in a matter of months or weeks or, I don't know, days, because it's going to be rather warm, once those nuclear warheads explode. If only we can convince young people to take notice of what's about to happen. It could even happen in my lifetime, and I'm 77 years old. People need to wake the fuck up.
Risks posed by the possibility of nuclear war and the effects of climate change have led to the symbolic doomsday clock to be frozen at the closest it has been to midnight. Created by the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists in 1947, the clock intends to warn of impending disasters. The group has acknowledged improvements in US-North Korean relations and also criticised increased carbon emissions from some nations and continued diplomatic schisms across the world.
The business of everyday politics blinds people to the risk. We're playing Russian roulette with humanity, and the danger and the probability is mounting that there will be some kind of nuclear incident that will kill millions, if not initiating exchanges that will kill billions. Given that threat, why aren't people more concerned? Because they're not. People feel very comfortable in high places at living at the brink of total Armageddon.